It's harder to lose what you have than not get what you don't have. So thinking about, okay, I want to leave my really well-paid career to go into something that isn't as stable or to go into something that has more meaning, has more impact, that is going to cause a lot of fear.
Hannah Hotline, how can I redirect your call? Oh, hello. Hi, I have a really big problem at
Dear
work.
Hannah Hotline.
I don't really like my boss. I'm really attracted to the guy I work with, but
I just want to say no, but I say
it's
yes.
my self-esteem, you know? Maybe it's burnout. This is the operator putting you through now.
Hey, hotties, welcome back to Hannah Hotline. This is the second episode. I am so pumped to be here with you today. So, we have a really juicy listener email, as usual. I shouldn't really say as usual because it's only the second episode, but you know what I mean. So, let's get right into it. So, the listener says, "Hi, Hannah. I feel completely torn between the life I've built and the life I actually want. On paper, I'm doing incredibly well. I'm a high income earner. I've worked so hard for this career, and I know how lucky I am to have the salary and stability that I do. Good for you, girl. But the truth is, I hate the work. It doesn't feel meaningful. It doesn't feel like it contributes anything positive to the world. Every year that passes, it gets harder and harder to ignore how misaligned it all feels. At the same time, there's a part of me that dreams about leaving corporate and building something of my own, something that helps people and something that actually matters. I can picture a career that's more aligned, more creative, and more me. I want freedom, flexibility, and connection and impact. I want to feel like I'm living my purpose. But then another part of me shuts it all down. There's a voice that tells me I should stay where things feel familiar and safe. A voice that says starting over would be irresponsible and that I would be lazy for wanting something different. Ooh. A voice that's terrified that if I try and start my own thing or even pivot into a new industry, I'll fail. So instead of building the life that I want, I keep choosing the one that I already know, even though it drains me, even though I know it's not where I'm meant to be. How do I move forward with the part of me that's craving purpose and freedom and is constantly battling the part of me that's scared to risk everything I've worked so hard for?" Signed, Successful But Stuck. Okay. Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say that so many people feel like this. And I coach a lot of really high income earners who feel very stuck and feel very drained and directionless and don't really know where to go from there because they don't want to sacrifice the lifestyle that they've built. But then again, they're not really fulfilled by their career. So I'm going to walk you through different ways about how to think about this and also giving you some tangible steps forward while also framing some things out for you. So, first of all, I think that there's some research that I really like, and it's about people's relations to their work. This was research that was done in the late 90s, but I find it really quite useful, especially in terms of what is going on right now. In this study, it looks at three types of orientations to your career. So, the first one is a job orientation. So, this is basically looking at your career like a job. So work is money. It's just an exchange. You know, you don't really like your job that much, but your job is really a means to an end. So it affords you your life. You maybe are motivated by rewards outside of work. Maybe you can afford a really nice lifestyle. Maybe you can afford to whatever, send your kids to private school, go on international trips once a year, a few times a year, buy a really nice handbag, whatever it is that you like. But a job is really just a means to an end. So then the second is a career orientation. So this is where, you're really motivated by your career. You want to climb the ladder. You want to do really well. You're quite motivated by achievement and by success and by doing a really good job. You feel like you are getting, you want to progress in your career. And it sounds to me like where the writer of the email was more in this orientation. So more in the career orientation. But the third is the calling orientation. So the calling orientation is really where you feel like your work is your identity, your purpose. You feel like the way to self-actualize is through your career. And it's really, you're looking at, okay, you're motivated by intrinsic fulfillment and contribution. So what the shift that's happening is it seems like the writer was going from looking at from the career orientation to the calling orientation. So really craving that career and purpose are inextricably linked. Now, there has been a huge rise of this, and I think it's really happened since the rise of Simon Sinek, where millennials talk about their purpose a lot. And there's a lot of research that millennials will actually even take lower salaries if they feel like the organization aligns with their purpose or is purpose driven or mission driven. And I almost want to just hesitate and almost be a little bit careful if you think that your purpose has to be your career, because you can almost decouple them and also get purpose from other areas of your life, and know that you can get other areas of your life, and just know that finding purpose and meaning, your career is not the only avenue to do that. So that's the kind of like little red flag that did stand out to me about this email. Now, what happens is, especially in high earners, there's almost like a high earners trap and a high income trap, because you get really used to a certain lifestyle, and then leaving that lifestyle is going to be really psychologically hard for people. So it's harder to lose what you have than not get what you don't have. So thinking about, okay, I want to leave my really well-paid career to go into something that isn't as stable, or to go into something that has more meaning, has more impact, that is going to cause a lot of fear. And I know for me, because I've done this exact same thing, I did leave a very high paid career to go into something that was entrepreneurship, to become a life coach versus to be in tech sales and be a leader and have a well-established reputation, to doing something completely different. So I know what journey this can take, and also the psychological hurdles that you have to overcome to get there. But then we look at, okay, what's the sunk cost fallacy? So if we think about sunk cost fallacy, this is the theory that humans irrationally factor past investments into future decisions. So it's almost like you thinking about, okay, you're afraid of wasting the last 10 years, but staying may cost you the next 30. So you're thinking about, well, I don't want to maybe waste all the time and effort that I've spent in this career building it, but instead that means that I'm going to sacrifice, the opportunities that I may get, because I don't want to waste all the time. So this is why people stay in bad relationships. This is why, let's say, you've bought a ticket to a movie and you're seeing it and you're halfway through and you're like, this is absolutely terrible. I'm watching Channing Tatum on a screen and it's like, oh my God, I just can't even watch this 1 second more. Then, but oh, I paid whatever, $30, or maybe I'm in gold class. So I paid, I don't know how much a gold class movie theater ticket costs these days, but I paid $90, whatever it is. I've already paid this much, so I have to stay. And what often happens in careers is that people think, well, I've already invested so much in my brand. I already have so much clout at this company. I already make so much in this one area of my life. How is it that I could sacrifice all of that? But the way that you think about this, it almost makes no sense, because you're saying just because you have invested in something in the past and that's time that you can't get back, that you should then not move forward with something else. So thinking about this, your career is almost like, okay, you have invested in a career that you don't like. However, what's the cost of staying in it? But that might be, it might be something extremely hard to stomach as well. And that's okay. And that's why, and I talk about this pretty much every episode, where it might not necessarily be like a big move today. You might want to take a little micro move. So some really practical, tactical ways to do this is, number one, what's the industry that you want to go into? And actually looking at about, okay, what is the upskilling that I would need to do? So let's say you are in tech and you want to go into coaching. This is a scenario that I get all the time, because I was in tech and then I became a coach. So people come to me, they're asking me this. So then I am always like, okay, very practically, does the organization that you're at, can they pay for a coaching certification? Can you do something while you're already in your job? So can you have your transition period almost be your side hustle, versus this very black and white thinking, which is, I'm really unsatisfied in my career. I have to quit it today. I have to do these things. I want purpose. I want impact. Well, how can you take smaller steps and actually stress test if this is what you actually want to do? So in the coaching example, it's, how could you sign up for a course in coaching? Okay, you signed up for a course. Now you actually begin to coach. You see the types of clients that you want. Maybe you realize you don't actually like it, but you want to go into entrepreneurship in some other area. That's totally cool. But you have that data while you have that safety net. And some practical things to think about is, let's say you do start your own business that you crave, that you feel like is going to have a lot of purpose, a lot of mastery. I would have at least 1 year's worth of living expenses saved up. So imagine that you are not earning income for 1 year. And that's the safety net I would really give yourself. But then you also need to factor in what are the costs involved in starting the business. So, what are the costs involved in upskilling? What are the costs involved in getting legal contracts together? What are the costs involved in building a website? And actually start to scope. And if you are thinking about starting a business, talk to entrepreneurs in your space and see what are the things that you're not even thinking about. And actually then start to make a list of what things cost and how much you'll need to set aside. Because sometimes, while people do want mastery and meaning and impact, and of course you want to be fulfilled and self actualized by your work, if you feel like you have that really career calling job orientation, like I spoke about at the beginning, sometimes we think about this, but people can then lose the practicality of, well, what does that really mean on a day to day? So I wouldn't take any like huge moves until you have actually scoped this in the necessary way. And then the last thing that I would think about is that you wrote about purpose in your email. And purpose often requires a big sacrifice, and really living that purpose isn't necessarily going to be quite easy. So if you do want something that is causes, that you have more impact and that you feel more fulfilled, that may mean sacrificing a higher salary for a few years. And is that really worth it to you? And it may be really worth it to you, but it may not be really worth it to you. For me, it was worth it, and I really wanted to be. I am personally in the third bucket of more the calling orientation. I feel like what I do is a calling. I feel like my career is I get a lot of purpose from it. I feel like a lot of it is my life's purpose. This has also been a really interesting conversation that Chris and I have been having in the background in our decision to have children or not, because a lot of people do want children to give their life purpose and meaning, and not saying that that's the only reason. Of course it's not, but I feel like my life already has so much of it, and it is because that my career is in the calling orientation. So that might be sacrificing a high salary might be worth that to you to get that, but that's only a call that you can make, and really think about what does that look like, in the short term? What am I going to have to not do? Am I going to be okay with that? Because I don't think this is something that people really do think about, and they are surprised in entrepreneurship when, let's say, it doesn't pick up as quickly as possible. And I've had so many people say, I want to make my tech salary back the first year I'm in business. And that is really hard, especially because you need to make that back in your business in profit. And in your first year, depending on what type of business, especially if you're in a product-based business, that is so much of in terms of capital that you need to be putting out to make anything back. What are your margins like? So you really want to think through that before making any big decisions. Now, that isn't to say, I feel like I've almost been pretty discouraging about this, but that's not to say that this isn't something that can happen, because of course it is 100% possible. But I would also really look at what's going on is there's a parts polarization in the system here. So the writer is saying, okay, I have a part that really is craving mastery, purpose, meaning, fulfillment. And then there's another part of me that says stay safe. And what we can do when there's a parts polarization in the system, so two parts that want different things and they're often in conflict, is really look at what do they both want underneath? Like they both probably want security in some way. And how can each part let the other part know what it wants? So really, what's the deeper meaning or the deeper yearning underneath it? And then how can you really give it that? So how can you really satisfy it so both of them still get what they need if you are going to take the next steps? So this is a really big one. And I would say that this is also one that a lot of people do come to me. And this is what my group coaching program was built around as well. Of people asking these really big questions about career, asking really big questions about purpose, wanting more purpose, wanting more meaning in their lives. So I hope, write in again, let me know where you landed with this. I'd love to hear back from you. And I will see you soon, Hannah Hotties. And I hope you like this episode of Hannah Hotline. You can follow me. And also, if you have a Hannah Hotline email that you want to submit, you can submit it at hello@hannahkissel.com. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to read your emails. And I will speak to you soon.
Hannah Hotline. Email her and you
Hotline is sponsored by Dominique Jingles, where quirky, clever and corporate branding is reimagined. DM Dominique on Instagram at Dominique Jingles or email dominiqueenglish04@gmail.com.